Florida residents are fleeing the state thanks to high insurance premiums. Meanwhile, where is the governor? Florida, a state that is prone to natural disasters and to the structural damage that often accompanies those natural disasters, currently has the highest home insurance premiums in the country, with the average Floridian paying more than double what the average American pays. As home prices continue to inflate in value, longtime residents are having a hard time keeping up with the growing cost of living. You may recall that recently 15 major insurance companies pulled out of Florida, leaving residents with fewer insurers to choose from. The ones that have stuck around are charging exorbitant premiums, claiming that just living in a post-global warming Florida is a risky venture. But living in Florida has always been kind of risky. Many parts of this country have climates that are inhospitable to people. It's only with modern technology that we've managed to make many of these places livable. I live along the Gulf Coast, and this place would be much more difficult to live in without centralized AC literally everywhere. But Florida's always been particularly vulnerable. Florida juts out into the Caribbean Sea with the Atlantic Ocean on its east coast and the Gulf of Mexico on its west coast. As tropical storms head toward the U.S. from Africa, there's little between the storm and Florida. Of all the states in the United States, Florida sees the most hurricane landfall, and since there's not a whole lot to slow the hurricanes down before hitting, many of those hurricanes hit as major hurricanes, Category 3 or higher. As global warming continues to elevate ocean temperatures, the storms are expected to continue growing bigger and stronger. In other words, these storms are becoming more deadly and more destructive and more costly. Case in point, Hurricane Ian, which hit Florida as a strong Category 4 last year, ran up an $84 billion tab in damages, making it the costliest hurricane to hit the state. In second place is Hurricane Irma from 2017, which only cost about $60 billion. Ian made landfall as a Category 4 after weakening slightly from a Category 5 just before hitting Florida. Category 5 hurricanes, by the way, are described as being capable of causing catastrophic damage to the point that entire cities and towns can be completely leveled, but they are extremely rare. Since the U.S. started keeping track of these sorts of things, only 4 Category 5 hurricanes have made landfall in the United States. 3 of those 4 Category 5 hurricanes made landfall in Florida, the last of which was Hurricane Michael in 2018. Notably, the strength of the storm doesn't necessarily correlate to damage, deaths, or cost, and Category 3s and 4s are still incredibly formidable. Beyond the hurricanes, though, other factors have contributed to the insurance flight in Florida. According to Charles Neese, an associate professor of risk management and insurance at Florida State University, quote, Florida has a fraud problem. It represents 7% of the U.S. homeowners insurance market, but Florida represents 75% of all litigation coming out of homeowners. He goes on to explain, quote, insurance companies are private enterprises. They're in business to make money. For them to make decisions, it's all about risk and reward. And they decided that there was too much risk relative to the award that they receive in Florida. Another factor that could be contributing to more costly insurance premiums is that developers continue to push for property development in increasingly inhospitable areas like the literal Everglades. This is also happening at a time when sea levels are rising, a problem that is already impacting Florida more than most other places. Paving over floodplains doesn't help, and many areas in Florida, due to a combination of overdevelopment and increased populations, are already suffering from a lack of available resources like water. Residents are fleeing the pressure too. According to the U.S. Census Bureau, nearly 500,000 Floridians left the state in 2022. With rising taxes, rising insurance premiums, and little to no improvement in quality of living, the sunshine that drew many people to the state in the first place has simply not been enough to keep them there. As for Governor DeSantis, who last I checked is still running for president, technically, he's simply not doing enough for Florida residents. Florida Democratic Representative Maxwell Frost said that there's a, quote, lack of leadership in Florida. However, a spokesperson for the governor told Newsweek that DeSantis has made some moves to help Floridians, but the impact of those moves might not be felt immediately. So what has he done? Well, following Hurricane Ian in 2022, which you'll remember was the costliest hurricane to hit Florida, DeSantis made it more difficult for people to sue their insurance companies for acting in bad faith. This is after Floridians had sustained incredible damage to their properties and were only getting a fraction of what they should have gotten from their insurance companies. He also removed homeowners' abilities to recover attorney's fees even if they won their lawsuits. Also, insurance companies are now allowed to create new policies with mandatory binding arbitration agreements in exchange for reduced premiums, kneecapping homeowners even further. And that's not all. Now, if homeowners don't move quickly, the governor shortened the window within which they can file insurance claims after an incident. He also invested $1 billion of taxpayer dollars into a bailout fund for the insurance companies, not for the homeowners, and he made fewer Floridians eligible for the state-run nonprofit insurance, the insurance that people would normally take when they didn't qualify for private insurance. Now, the reason for all of this isn't hard to see either. DeSantis rose to the Florida governorship thanks in large part to the insurance industry. A report that came out earlier this year found that he received nearly $4 million in campaign donations from insurance companies. Since DeSantis became governor in 2019, average Florida home insurance premiums have more than doubled. Even Trump called him out for it. Anyway, DeSantis said all of these legislative changes that he made, which he rushed through the approval process, by the way, were intended to stabilize the insurance market in Florida. So far, that's yet to be seen. So in the meantime, Florida residents are either living uninsured or they're just leaving Florida. All right, that's it for me. If you got anything out of this, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, check out my podcast, Modern Context. Thank you.